Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 200 of the Tick Boot Camp podcast. The title of today's interview is Mylie's Lyme Story, an interview with Alexandra and Madeline Castellanos. My name is Richard Johannesson.
And I'm Matt Sabatello.
Matt, the Lyme wars are real, and on the front lines of this war are young people, children with immature immune systems. And many of our followers have argued that in order to be able to succeed in overcoming the challenges of the Lyme war, we need more LLMDs. And I have to part company with them. I agree we need more LLMs, and I agree we need more LLDs, but I don't agree with merging them together. And what I mean by that is we need more Lyme literate moms and Lyme literate dads. And I think if we have a model, or we need a model for Lyme literate moms, we have one in Alexandra Castellanos.
Rich, Alex is certainly an LLM. One of the things we talked about on this podcast interview is how there's probably so many children out there being misdiagnosed with behavioral issues, and they likely have a tick-borne illness. Alex is jumping into the community and starting to network and advocate for young children, and she's going to do even more of this in the future. We look forward to working with Alex as she continues with this cause.
So, Matt, we keep arguing to our followers that if you want to shortcut your journey, you should be looking for someone who has already achieved the goal you want to achieve and then model them. Well, I think every parent should want to model Alex Castellanos in that she found the way to get from a bite to a diagnosis to a treatment protocol that ultimately allowed her daughter to have a successful outcome. And I'm really excited to introduce Mylie's Lyme Story and Alexandra and Madeline Castellanos to the Tick Boot Camp community.
Hey, Madeline and Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Madeline, can you start by telling us where you live?
Well, we live in Los Angeles, California, and it's really nice here, and we love the sun.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot right now. Yeah.
And Madeline, how old are you?
I am 9.5 years old, and my birthday's coming up, which I'm super excited for.
Oh, well, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So Alex, can you tell us about where you grew up?
Yeah. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I've been here my whole life. And so has Madeline. So we are California natives, California girls.
So Alex, I'll start with you. Tell us about what you learned about ticks and tick prevention and Lyme disease in your childhood.
My goodness. So it's so interesting because like I said, I grew up in California. So I spent my summers and my winters doing family trips, going to Yosemite Park. And I guess I grew up knowing that ticks were just something that would possibly happen if we would go hiking. And I distinctly remember having one of our cousins had a tick in his belly button, and it was nothing, out of the ordinary. I remember my dad actually got a lighter and he just lit the tick and the tick came out, and that was it. We just never thought it was anything bizarre or weird. We just thought, okay, there's ticks out in the woods, and you just either light it on fire and it'll back it up, and that's it. I never heard of Lyme disease. I had never thought that ticks were dangerous. I just thought of it as it was just a regular insect. So that's basically how I grew up, and I thought that up until Madeline was diagnosed with Lyme.
So really you thought they were just a regular bug that can bite you. They were a nuisance. You'd pull it out and move on with your life.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, looking back, do you think that burning the tick to get it out was the proper removal process?
Oh my goodness, no. And if anything, like what I know now, it's almost so comical because I think about like how we grew up, and then just thinking about, going to Yosemite and how casual we were about it. It's insane to me because like I would never do that, knowing like what I know now. Even now, I think maybe even a year after Madeline was diagnosed, I would put her in leggings and I would have like socks rolled outside of the legging, and that was just to probably go outside. And that was not in the woods. So definitely, my mind has changed about ticks and the experience and everything that's happened. So
now,
yeah.
do you recall ever being bitten by a tick in your life?
No, I do not. I've never been bit by a tick. I've never had a bullseye rash, nothing. So
So Madeline, talk to us about what you knew about ticks and Lyme disease before you got sick when you were 5, if you can remember that far back.
I probably didn't even know what a tick was.
I don't think so, huh?
No.
Yeah.
I just probably thought when somebody said tick, like it was a clock.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, we're in California and a lot of people just, especially where we live in the city. So a lot of people don't even say that there are ticks in California, let alone in Los Angeles. So it's really nothing that people speak of. If anything, when Madeline was diagnosed and, the mention of a tick was even brought up, it was like, oh, like how, or where were you, or how did this happen? Or were you on the East Coast? That was like the number one question I always got was, were you on the East Coast?
So Alex, I'm assuming that growing up, Madeline wasn't using any sort of tick prevention methods like a natural spray or doing any techniques to help her prevent a tick from finding her and biting her.
Absolutely nothing. No. Mm-mm.
And talk to us about the education there, because here in New York, if you go to parks, you do see occasionally signs, beware of ticks, use tick repellent. It's on the news occasionally. Do you ever hear anything about Lyme disease in California on the news, any signs at parks, anything like that at all?
We don't. I don't recall anything. And, we go to a lot of parks, even when she was younger, before the whole, Lyme diagnosis thing. And I don't recall seeing any signage at the beaches, parks. I don't think we've gone to any
I
forests.
don't think you've seen any tick signs.
Yeah. I don't recall seeing anything like that. No.
So this is a question for both of you, for Alex and Madeline. Do you know anybody in your lives that has been impacted by a tick-borne illness like Lyme disease?
Yes, we do.
We do. So ironically, my aunt, and I'm going to say the city because I think it's so important that people hear where my aunt and my best friend live. So my aunt lives in Fullerton. It's a city in California. And it's so important that I say this because a lot of people are so surprised when I say that my aunt who lives in Fullerton has Lyme disease. And she contracted it here in California, probably in her city. My best friend who lives in Azusa, California, also has Lyme disease. And so it's so important. And I always share that the cities and the locations of where, my aunt and my best friend are, because a lot of people just think of these cities as places where you would never, get Lyme disease. So yeah, so I have those 2 people and now Madeline. So I know 3 people in my inner circle that have Lyme disease.
So from the standpoint of recognition, when your aunt was diagnosed and your best friend was diagnosed, do you think that there have been some changes in California locally to be better aware that Lyme is a potential risk in cities like where you guys live?
No, I don't think I've seen anything. If anything, it's probably more on social media. I do recall seeing something along the lines of they were reporting that there are ticks at the beaches, which I thought was really awesome. So I do recall seeing that. I do feel like that article came from the news, like a news channel outlet. So that was really good. But other than that, I don't think I've seen anything.
All right, so Madeline, talk to us about when you first got sick when you were 5, if you can remember, what your symptoms were and how you started to feel differently then.
Well, I was a super hyper kid.
Madeline was always hyper.
I'd run around.
Yeah, she stopped taking naps. I would have to say even at 1.5, almost 2 years old. She has always been a very light sleeper. She just doesn't need a lot of sleep as it is. And I noticed that she was starting to take naps. She was starting to fall asleep. I think we were driving over to a play date at her friend's house and she fell asleep in the car and it was time to get out. And she just told me, no, she didn't want to go. She'd rather sleep. And I thought that was just so bizarre because all of a sudden my child was just sleeping. So,
yeah.
Right.
And they did get headaches. And then I remember once we were at Target and then we were like, come on, let's go in, Madeline. And then I couldn't walk. I remember.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Your legs were.
And you had to carry me.
Yes. I remember that too now.
Madeline, talk to us a little bit more about that. When you say you couldn't walk, did your legs hurt and you couldn't walk or you couldn't move your legs?
Oh, like they hurt so bad, like I couldn't walk.
So now when these symptoms started, was there a tick bite or any kind of bite that you experienced, Madeline and Alex, you recall that would have triggered these symptoms that now looking back could have been a tick bite that caused Lyme disease?
Do you want to answer? Do you want Mom to answer?
Yeah.
So I do recall that Madeline had a bite on her arm, and it formed a massive, massive rash. It almost took over her entire arm. And so I did end up taking her to urgent care, and we were dismissed. And I feel like after that bite, however, I do want to stress, I did not see a tick on her. There was no bug. There was nothing there. It wasn't even a bullseye rash. Just this rash in particular was just bizarre and large. And it literally took over her entire arm. And so I did take her to urgent care and we were dismissed. And then I feel after that visit is when all the symptoms started happening. And I would have to say maybe for a good month and a half, there was just something off with her. It just wasn't the hyper vivacious Madeline.
So the symptoms started pretty quickly after that bite.
Definitely.
So Madeline, do you remember the bite?
Kind of, or like, do you mean like when I was bitten?
Yeah, you remember the bite and the rash, and if so, can you tell us how it felt? Was it hot? Was it itchy? You know, what kind of feeling did it have?
I don't really remember. What was it?
I don't recall if it was itchy or hot. I personally don't remember either. But I would definitely say
It was weird looking.
it was bizarre. It was a really large rash.
So was it a large rash that was fully colored? Was there a bullseye in it? Was it raised? Do you remember any details about the rash?
It was definitely a bunch of red. It was red.
Raised and it was red. It wasn't a bullseye rash. I would definitely say a month and a half after that, then that's when we started getting the funky bullseye rashes. She had one populate on her arm and then on her leg and her inner ankle.
So before the bullseye rashes, Alex, did you think that the change in your daughter's energy and her new symptoms could have been related back to that rash? Or is just the education so non-existent that you never connected the two together at that point?
I did it, and I feel so bad for this, but I have to be like really honest about this. So I kind of just thought Madeline was maybe just not wanting to go to summer school because she was at summer school at the time. And I just thought maybe she was telling me that she's tired or she has a headache or she doesn't feel well to go to school. I really thought that's what was happening. So looking back on it now, obviously, you know, her symptoms were true and they were real, but I just took it like she was just being a child who didn't want to go to school because it was summer. Obviously, every child wants to stay at home. And then it was a really, really, really hot summer. I remember that summer. It was hotter than usual. So I just thought those were also symptoms of the heat. So
talk to us more about a month later after the rash when Madeline, you started to develop the bullseye rashes. So Madeline, I'll start with you first. Do you recall those bullseye rashes when you started to develop those a month after the first rash?
I do remember like looking at them and I kept like looking at them. And I was like, I don't know. I just kept looking at them for some reason.
And where were they, Madeline? Were they on your arm, on your legs? Where were they show up on your body?
Well, one was on my arm, the other one was, and then later I had one on my leg and then my ankle. And I think they were all bullseyes, right?
they were bullseyes. The first one populated on her arm.
Yeah.
And then I can't even recall, but within days, the other ones were coming up. And so, yeah, I knew something was wrong.
So Alex, now that you knew something was wrong, did you take Madeline back to the doctor to say, hey, look, she's not feeling great. Now she's developing new weird rashes. What's going on?
I did. So as I mentioned, my best friend who has Lyme disease, she had been kind of informing me about her situation and her symptoms and everything that she had been going through. So I was somewhat familiar with Lyme disease. I would maybe say like my education on it was about like 5%. I just knew like the basics of it. I knew there was a bullseye that was related to it and a tick. That's about as far as my education went on it. So when I saw the bullseye rash, I thought, oh my goodness, this is like what my best friend has been telling me that she has, and this is a symptom of what she has. I thought something is not right. So obviously I didn't take her back to urgent care because we got nowhere there. And so I called our general doctor. He was not available, so we were sent to go see his physician's assistant, and she was very okay with the rash. It was not suspicious to her. It was nothing to ring the alarm. And she sent me on my way home and she said, Mom, it's okay. Like, you're fine. Go home. So we were going home and I ran into our doctor in the hallway and I said, please look at her arm. I said, something's not right. So he went ahead and he looked at it. He freaked out and threw us in a room, thankfully. And he's like, wait for me. So we did. And thanks to him, I mean, I owe him everything because he saw it and he knew what to do.
Alex, I know thankfully your doctor listened to you, but you went there with the knowledge at the time that you had because of your friend that
Yes.
this could be Lyme disease because of the bullseye rash, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the PA dismissed you, even though we know today that a bullseye rash clearly indicates definitely you have Lyme disease.
Yes. So I do believe, because now I'm starting to remember, I'm remembering now that was asking if we had a tick, if we had traveled anywhere, we had gone hiking, if we went to travel, and my answers were all no, 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 no. So therefore, in her experience, this was a go home and put Neosporin on it.
But not to be too critical of the PA,
Yes.
most patients who suffer from Lyme disease and even chronic Lyme disease don't remember the tick biting them because ticks do have a lot of properties like an antihistamine and a lot of stealth tools they use to not allow the host, meaning us, the humans, to know they're even biting us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that this is something that can be improved in the California area for PAs and doctors to recognize that a lot of patients never even know they're bit by a tick, and if they have a bullseye rash, it should be treated seriously and they should be treated for Lyme disease?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm still confused as to why this is not something that they're educated on or updated on. I feel, even when I was in there, it's like, I feel like we're living in, like the 1950s, like it was almost like the medical books have not been updated and just no one's aware of it.
Before we get back to Madeline with a few other questions, Alex, I want to ask you, do you feel that there are any factors that cause the PA to dismiss you? Because we've heard from a lot of past podcast guests that age, gender, and also appearance matter when getting a Lyme diagnosis. So Madeline probably looked very healthy at the time. She probably was acting very healthy at the time. And you're coming in and they could be looking at you as a stressed mom. So do you think those things really had any sort of influence in the PA's decision to just dismiss this as a rash and you overreacting to your daughter?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely felt I was the overly stressed mom who goes in for anything, but I'm not. So I definitely feel like that's what happened. And
yeah, a lot of people thought that probably.
Yeah.
So Madeline, do you remember this doctor's visit when you went?
A little bit.
What? They drew your blood.
Oh, yeah.
I know you would remember that.
Oh, that's scary. Oh, nobody likes getting blood drawn. So Madeline, did you put on a brave face when you went in there? Did you go in there trying to be normal and put on a brave face for your doctors?
No, I don't really do that. I just kind of tell them, and then I always just hope that I don't have to get my blood drawn.
That's been the worst for her. Yeah.
So Madeline, when you were meeting with the physician's assistant before the doctor ran into you and your mom when you were leaving, did you tell the physician's assistant that you were having these new symptoms, that you were tired, that your legs hurt really bad, and that you didn't feel right? Did you tell the doctor that?
No, I think you did, right?
Yeah, but now thinking on it, I don't think I even stressed it too much because, like I said, I feel like my knowledge of Lyme was just very basic. It just involved, a type of an insect and, a rash. That's as far as it went. It didn't go any further than that. So as far as like the symptoms, I don't even think I really put her tiredness, the migraines, the aches in the legs. I don't think I really connected that to what was going on. I think I just really said like, hey, this is a rash. I need medicine. That was it. That's all
So Alex, you really just thought that she had a bullseye rash and had Lyme, but you didn't connect any of her symptoms to the Lyme disease. You just thought the rash was the only symptom she had for Lyme.
Yes.
So thankfully your encounter with your doctor was a much better encounter, and he pulled you into the other waiting room. So at that point, unfortunately, Madeline, did you have to get blood drawn?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Everyone heard.
Oh.
Yeah, everyone heard. But it was something that had to be done. And, thankfully it came out positive. And I, at the time, had not even known that that was something that was even so rare and unheard of. So everything just really lined up for us. We're really, really lucky.
As weird as it sounds, I think the fact that you had a positive test really is something that, like you said, is a lucky turn of events, because many people have Lyme and get a negative test, and there are a lot of false negatives that come out of Lyme testing. So did the doctor tell you that, Alex, when you first got the blood work at that appointment?
No, he didn't. Our doctor, and I love him so much, because especially for him looking at the rash and using his common sense, and I thank him for this. I'm like, use common sense. He saw it and he knew. He's like, I don't need to test her. He's like, I know what this is. But he's like, we're going to test her also, and we're going to start antibiotics right away without getting the results of the test. So with that, I just really feel like we just got lucky, and we did.
So talk to us about, was there a discussion, Alex, between you and the doctor regarding antibiotic treatment? Because children sometimes can't get the same antibiotics as adults. So did you have a discussion about what antibiotics would be appropriate to treat the Lyme disease?
So I did and I didn't, because our doctor, when he did tell us that, it was positive, he just said, this is where I stop. Like, I don't know how else I can help her. I don't know where I can even guide her. He even said, I don't know any Lyme doctors. He says, so right here, this is where I stop. But I wish you guys luck. But he's awesome for that, for being so truthful and honest about that. So he did just prescribe us antibiotics. He did prescribe her, I believe, amoxicillin, but she couldn't take that due to an allergy. So he did give her Septin, and he gave her, a couple of weeks. And with that couple of weeks, then I began doing my homework, and I joined some Facebook groups, and I learned that I needed to look for a pediatric Lyme literate medical doctor.
So talk to us more about the amoxicillin. So Madeline, do you remember, did you take the medication at first and have a reaction and not feel good from it?
Wait, is it the one like that?
The Septin, do you remember
Yeah.
Do you remember the Septin? You couldn't do the amox, so I put you on Septin. It was white. Do you remember it was refrigerated? And we had to travel with it. Did it make you feel different?
No, I just don't like the taste of medicine really, because I mean, it's kind of just weird tasting and the texture. So medicine doesn't really make me feel weird most of the time. Like, it has to be like a really medicine that I'm probably going to be allergic to. But I'm not allergic to that one. So it didn't really make me feel different, I don't think.
You were fine.
Yeah.
So on the Septin, you were fine, but so Alex, you mentioned the amoxicillin. I believe that Madeline had an allergic reaction to, correct?
No. She can't take amoxicillin, like, period. So that was his first choice. He wanted amoxicillin, but we couldn't do that. So then that's why we ended up going with Septin.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure if that's maybe like second place on the tier. I think it is, because I even wrote that in our notes. Madeline was not a candidate to do Doxy. So back then, Doxy was not for children 8 and under. Now it is. So that's a different ballgame too.
So were you looking for anything when you started treatment? Because you never connected the symptoms to Lyme disease, only the rash. So were you solely looking for the rash to go away based on the treatment with the Septin antibiotic?
Looking back on it now, possibly, yes. And then I would have to say maybe even a week into it, I think after joining the Facebook groups, I think I realized like what we were actually involved in, because I was still mentally thinking that Madeline was probably going to take 4 weeks of Sefton and then we were done. And then joining the Facebook group is where I really, really understood exactly what Madeline was officially a part of now. Because those moms on there, they really, you know, they explain to you everything, and then they go through their experience, and you start realizing this is not a 4-week situation and we're walking away from it, because I thought that's what was happening.
Alex, was that the prescription that was prescribed by your doctor? Was it a 4-week prescription of Sefton?
Yes.
Madeline, talk to us more about your symptoms. So were there any other things that you felt that were not good, that made you feel sick or bad? So you mentioned you had your leg pain, really bad headaches, and you were tired. Was there anything else that felt different and off when you were sick with this?
Well, recently my eyes have been weird, like
Light
sometimes-
sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think before we even started this, I asked her if she wants us to turn the lights off. She just does better, you know, with the lights off.
Mhm.
And that's very common with Lyme disease. Do you have, Madeline, noise sensitivity as well? Does loud noise sometimes make you just feel overwhelmed and not so great?
No.
Oh, thank
Just
goodness.
mother. just me.
Uh, so at the end of this 4-week window, were your symptoms any better, Madeline? Do you remember when you finished this medicine that you didn't really like the taste of? Were your symptoms any better? How did you feel?
I don't really remember. What did I feel?
You know, I don't even recall. I know within that 4-week time span, we had probably already taken her to Connecticut. I had already found a doctor. So I think that whole 4-week was a blur for us. It was just work. I just recall even my parents jumping in and trying to find a Lyme literate medical doctor that would see a 5-year-old child in California. It was so challenging. And even now, speaking of it, I have so many parents that come to me and they say, oh, I had no problem finding one in California. I actually have the opposite. I had the hardest time to find someone that would see Madeline because of her age. I would have to say their treatment age would start at age 8 or 9. So even my mother remembers calling, and we would just end up hanging up because it just wasn't, you know, a place that Madeline could go to. So those 4 weeks, I don't know if we really focused on if she was getting better or not, because we literally were just like working. We were just working the phones, trying to get in. And then if you do find someone, then it's like, oh, sorry, we have, you know, a wait list, or it's going to take a month to get in. And somehow we managed to get into Dr. Jones over in Connecticut.
So Madeline, thankfully you have such an amazing mom who realized that you needed some more help than you were getting. Do you remember what this was like for you at the time? It must have been weird and maybe scary to see your mom and your grandma, it sounds like, making all these phone calls, trying to get you into doctors across the country, another state. Do you remember what was going on at the time and how you felt about it all?
I probably just looked and I was probably thinking, why are you on the phone for so long? Because they'd be I know you would be on there forever.
Yeah, I called so many places, and I probably looked and sounded like a complete maniac on the phone. I might have even cried. So I'm pretty sure. Did you understand why I was calling?
No. I
No?
just thought it was a business call.
Yeah, I don't think she understood exactly what we were going through.
Yeah.
So Alex, talk to us more about your research, because you jumped right in after, and thankfully your doctor put his ego aside and said, I don't really know Lyme. I'm going to get you started, but you need to see a specialist. And then you jumped to which is kind of crazy to begin with, but thankfully he was so honest, and many doctors don't do that. Then you jump to Dr. Google, which is a great resource, but there's so much conflicting information out there. And, things like the Lyme wars, conflicting information. So what was that like for you to research an illness that your daughter now had and to see all of the conflict and conflicting information out there? How did you respond to all that?
I really have to say that I am so lucky, and obviously we don't want to know people that have Lyme, but knowing that what my best friend was going through, because she was kind of dealing with the same thing, I knew that whatever looked bizarre or odd online was probably true. And that's why I needed to tackle it. And I needed just to go, all in with everything.
Yeah.
So at this point, was your best friend and your aunt giving you advice based on their own experiences?
A little bit. It was just, it's so different when you're trying to find a doctor for a child and when you're also treating a child. It's so different. And it's one thing that I would like to, really stress is when I go on my Facebook pages, the ones that are not geared towards children, just overall, and you'll have, a mother on there that's seeking advice for their child, and then other adults will chime in and say like, well, why don't you try this and this and this? And, I know based on, a little bit of experience that I've had, I'm like, wait, no, you can't do that. It's a child. Like, their bodies are different. They react different. So I feel like I don't want to say that I rely too much on it, just because it's a totally different arena that you're in. The way that my best friend found her Lyme literate doctor was rather simple. She probably made 2 or 3 phone calls, where I know myself and my family, we probably easily, made 20 calls in California to try to find someone that would see Madeline. So it's different.
Yeah.
So Alex, talk to us about the differences that you've learned from going to these Facebook groups and also from your best friend and your aunt. What are some things that adults can do to treat Lyme that parents need to be careful not to do with their children? And we have a lot of people listening that are parents of young children who are suffering from Lyme. So I want to make sure we focus on those differences and highlight how you overcame those differences to treat Madeline.
Okay, so I'm going to speak specifically on Madeline. For example, the IVs. We definitely cannot do that. I do know, and I have seen other parents do that for their children. However, I know that that's something that we cannot do. And I also have seen on the Facebook groups, sometimes adults will suggest that, the child can do that, but it's really invasive and you need to be careful, because just because an adult can do it and an adult can sit there doesn't mean that a child can do it. You have to remember where they're at mentally, where they're at in life. I mean, they're young, they're going to get scared, and versus where an adult can actually, comprehend and understand what's going on and be a little bit more in tune and relax with their body, I feel. So I feel like that's one major thing, or even the peptides. There's no way that my daughter, again, I'm going to speak specifically on Madeline because I have read and seen kids that are doing this. I just know that that's something that we definitely cannot do, because it'll just create stress and it'll bring back all of the symptoms that we don't want, that we've worked so hard to not have.
So let's explore that, because I don't think a lot of people truly understand the impact stress can have on a Lyme healing journey. So how did you learn that? And why is that so important in Madeline's journey now in recovering from Lyme disease?
So this plays a huge role with us. This is probably number one in our home, is just to keep a stress-free Madeline.
Yeah.
Because, and Mad, you can definitely chime in on this, because, for example, math is one of our biggest struggles and one of our biggest stresses. And it has caused so many setbacks in treatment, and, where I feel like maybe Madeline is fine and in quote unquote remission, and we'll just have a bad math day because, as I mentioned, we do homeschool, and it could be almost like 4 months of calmness just went out the drain.
Hardest subject for me.
Yeah, so stress is so important because, or keeping, a stress-free life is so important, especially for us, because it truly can trigger Madeline. Just, it can literally mean, months and months of hard work. And I mean hard work of eating clean, being stress-free. It could just throw it all away.
Madeline, talk to us about what that means for you. If you have a really bad day in math and you're really struggling and frustrating, what kind of symptoms do you experience? Meaning, how do you feel? In what way do you feel bad after a bad math day like that?
I feel mad. I feel like I just want to sit down and just watch TV.
You get migraines.
Yeah, I get headaches, and then I just get really mad.
And hot.
I get sweaty, and then the AC never really works because it takes a while to turn back on and everything. And it's just not really good with it. So,
Yeah.
So talk to us more about the anger, because Alex, have you heard about Lyme rage?
Of course.
Is that I don't mean to put a label on it, but is that kind of what you think that Madeline is experiencing when she reacts to this, that she's experiencing Lyme rage?
1000%. We definitely went through a lot of that, especially when Madeline was on Bactrim. So that was something that we definitely had to pull from. We would go off and on of that one because that one was very, very, very challenging. I know that one could probably be considered more of a herx, but it definitely did bring out some of that, the Lyme rage, and also math. Yeah, it definitely does bring out Lyme rage, where it's almost like you can't truly communicate with the child.
So Alex, was Madeline experiencing these types of problems before she got sick with the rash and Lyme disease? Was she ever an angry person or responding that way?
No, not at all. No.
Is there anything that you can do, Madeline or Alex, that you can remember that will help you? So if you're having a bad math day and you get a migraine and you get really tired and you're really angry, is there anything you can do, whether it's even just watching a movie or any medicine you can take or anything you can do to help you feel better when you feel that way?
Just probably taking a break, because I remember like you do one packet each day, and then we stopped timing me because it stressed me out because I couldn't think the problems that straight, and then you had to get a certain timing and I couldn't do it. So then I would get stressed out. So then we stopped timing me, and then I started to take breaks during the math.
Yeah.
With each day.
Just breaks, taking breaks. It's so important to take a break and listen to your body and listen to your child, because otherwise you're just going to upset them even more. And you have already lost your child. You essentially have. And it's just, the goal is to try to get them back and to bring them back to you and to keep them calm.
Alex, talk to us more about how you found Dr. Jones in New Haven, Connecticut. I know you mentioned that you spent hours and countless days fighting with doctors to see Madeline and treat her. How did you finally land on Dr. Jones, and what made you decide to go across the country to treat?
Sure. So as I shared earlier, I had a really challenging time finding a doctor that would see Madeline. And this was purely because of her age. It wasn't because they weren't seeing patients. It was merely because she was 5 years old and she was just too young. So I went on Dr. Google, as you call it, and I Googled best Lyme pediatrician in the world. I literally Googled that. I could tell you exactly where I was. I was in my parents' living room. I used their laptop. And I pulled it up, found the number. The hardest office to get a hold of, they never answer. And I say this jokingly because he is known for this. So any other parents that were with Dr. Jones will totally understand everything that I'm saying. They never answered their phones. So it was so hard to get a hold of them. But I knew when I had Googled him and I read up on him that I wanted Madeline to go there. And there was just no other doctor in my eyes that we were going to go to. Like, we were getting in.
So it sounds like you almost had to stalk him to be able to get an appointment for Madeline.
Oh my goodness. We faxed him, we emailed him, we called, I would probably say 10 times a day. I left numerous voicemails because that was the only way that they were operating. Like I said, he uses fax machines. So that alone should say a lot of how we were trying to communicate with him. And then finally, my stepdad somehow got a hold of someone in there. And that's basically what opened up the communication.
As an IT professional, hearing that he's still using fax to communicate makes me cringe. But I do want to draw an interesting parallel here, because it sounds like when you're dealing with children with Lyme, that the parents have to fight even harder than adults trying to find a Lyme literate doctor. And I think we don't talk about this enough. We interviewed Olivia Goodrow, who is the founder of the Live Lyme Foundation, and her mom, Holiday Goodrow, who's actually just this week has been appointed the co-chair of the tick-borne disease working group at the federal level. She is perfect fit for that job. So we were very excited about that. But she actually had to fight, and she literally stalked Dr. Horowitz and had to pick him up from the airport and basically be his driver to get him to see her daughter. So it sounds like you had to kind of do a similar thing where you had to really just be super aggressive and have your father-in-law and your mom, and you had to just be basically knock down his door until you saw Madeline.
Yeah, we did. And it worked, and it happened. And let me tell you, this is how interesting it is. So they said, we're going to email you the application, and then you're going to mail the application. I thought, no, this is not like what I want to do. I just thought, how do I know it's going to get there? I was like, wait, you want me to send an actual hard copy that
Who does that?
No, it was so crazy. It's just thought, I can't email this back to you. Or they're like, no. And I said, what about fax even? And like, no, we want the hard copy, like in a yellow envelope. And I just thought, okay, we got to roll with it. This is what we have to do. So we did it.
Well, Dr. Jones, you sound like a great Lyme doctor, but please upgrade your technology, please.
I know. No, it's so funny. And he still handwrites all of his notes. So, yeah.
But it sounds like it was worth it. So talk to us about how you finally got an appointment, and how long was the wait? Because you mentioned some of these wait lists could be months, if not years, to get in to see a doctor.
So as I mentioned, when Madeline was on that 4-week Sefton run, and it was just kind of a blur because we were all just like hustling and working, and I don't know if anybody paid attention if her symptoms were getting better because we were just hustling at that time. We got in within 5 days, so that meant that we had to like book tickets, book a hotel. So everything was a blur. It truly was. I mean, we were a machine.
Well, it sounds like you were very fortunate to get in to see Dr. Jones 5 days later, considering some Lyme doctors have a year-plus waiting list.
It was insane. And I'm telling you, we were lucky from seeing our general doctor who saw the rash and did not require a positive test to get antibiotics. So we were lucky there. We were very lucky to even get a positive test, and we were lucky to find Dr. Jones and get in right away.
So Madeline, talk to us about what this was like for you. Now you're getting on an airplane, you're sick, and you're going across the country to see a doctor. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I love to travel, so I was perfectly okay with it. But what I was not perfectly okay with is whenever I had to go, I had to draw blood.
Yeah. So I do recall the first visit at Dr. Jones. I didn't think we were drawing blood. I don't think Madeline did either, because she had just done it with her previous doctor, the one who did the Western Blot. And at Dr. Jones, I think we did 14 vials.
Oh, Madeline, I'm sorry. That sounds horrible.
But he gave her a large Gatorade prior, and we didn't know why. So you're sitting there and he's like, here's a Gatorade. And I was thinking, okay, first of all, I do not allow Gatorade in the diet, period. And he's like, drink up. And I had no idea what was coming. She had no idea what was coming. And so when he said, oh, we're going to start doing lab work, I just thought, okay, that's fine. We'll go with it. I assumed it was going to be like 1 or 2. And then they just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And he,
Did 40.
Yeah, it was a machine.
So let's put this in perspective time-wise. So you were still 5, because this happened pretty quickly. You had the rash, and then a month later you had the bullseye, and then you went to the doctor. And then within 4 weeks, you were now at Dr. Jones. So you're still 5 years old. How old are you today, Madeline?
I am going to be 10.
On
Going to be
September.
10 on September. So this is about 4 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So from your perspective, Alex, walk us through what this doctor's appointment was like with Dr. Jones compared to your experiences with doctors and also your experience with Madeline, her doctors, and how it was just so different seeing a Lyme specialist.
Well, Dr. Jones alone is an experience because, as I mentioned, you're using fax machines and he handwrites everything. So that alone is an experience in itself. And he's so knowledgeable. And what I truly loved about Dr. Jones is he really does care about, the youngest of the young with Lyme. And he truly has dedicated his entire life to them. I mean, when we were there, he even told us that he was treating even a baby. So I would definitely say though the difference is obviously it's much more costly. That's a huge difference compared to our regular doctors, is the cost, the time that it takes, the drawing of blood, and you start learning about different labs that you're working with. Whereas if you don't have Lyme, you don't know what IGeneX is. You don't know what DNA connections is. You don't know what Galaxy is used for, maybe if you want to test a certain co-infection. So you don't really know that language until you're in a Lyme literate medical office.
Alex, talk to us more about that. So what labs would you recommend now based on your knowledge from Dr. Jones and Madeline's journey for Lyme and various tick-borne illnesses?
I personally loved IGeneX for Madeline. So I really love that. Unfortunately, it does involve blood. We have tried the urine one. That one I felt for us, again, was kind of a hit and miss. So I personally love IGeneX. I know we did a follow-up just on our own with IGeneX. So I like IGeneX.
Now, when Dr. Jones drew all his blood, did he send everything just to IGeneX, or is he sending it to different labs to see which one would possibly hit positive?
No, so the reason why he takes so many vials is because he sends them out to multiple different labs. And so he has some that he likes for certain co-infections. As I mentioned, Galaxy, he likes them for a certain co-infection. And we did do IGeneX, and gosh, I can't remember the other lab, but he uses different labs and then he compares them.
You know which lab which co-infection Galaxy is best used for? Is it Bartonella?
I believe so, yes.
So now, were you staying in Connecticut at this point? Were you there at a hotel, or were you there just for a one-day visit and going back home?
No, what we ended up doing, so we used to visit New York very often. Yeah. So we used to just go to New York.
Halloween.
Yeah, we used to even go every Halloween. We stopped, but we used to go very, very often. So we began taking the train. So we would just go from New York to Connecticut. But yes, essentially we would stay in Connecticut. There's a hotel that's very close to Dr. Jones, and we would just walk.
And you'd stay in New York. Do you have it at a friend's place? Did you have a home in New York? Is that why you would stay in New York and then take a train in?
We had a friend. Yeah. So we used to stay with our friend, and then you just take the train, and it's a really nice train.
So now talk to us about the treatment protocol. So you were still on or just finishing up the 4 weeks of the Ceftin, and now Dr. Jones is doing all of his blood work. Does he prescribe Madeline with something different, or is he waiting for the blood work to come back before figuring out how you're going to treat the Lyme disease?
No, so we went ahead. You know what? I do recall that we waited for the blood work to come back, and that took a while. So we waited for the blood work to come back. And then after that, that's when we found out that she had Lyme, which we obviously knew, right? And then she had Babesia, Bart, and oh gosh, something else. There's another, I can't recall, but I think our two main ones that we treat are for the Babesia and the Bart.
So Madeline, what was this like? You were staying in New York City, taking the train in to see your doctor, and you really didn't fully understand what was going on, it sounds like, from what you said. Were you just having fun with the travel and being in a different place?
Yeah.
Yeah. We would even go visit Yale. So we would try to make a trip out of it, you know, because it is scary and it's not fun for kids essentially because, you know, it was, yeah, doing blood work, it's not fun. And so you want to try to make the trip not seem like an errand. So we made sure to incorporate, you know, fun stuff for Madeline, and it was fun. We even met some college students that told us, you know, to sneak in and you can swing on the Yale swings. So you have to make it fun for them, you know, and we looked for the best pizza places. So
do you recall which pizza
done?
Do you recall which pizza place you felt was the best one in New York? As a fellow New Yorker, I'm curious.
Wait, not in New York though, in Connecticut.
Oh, okay. I don't know them
in
in
Connecticut. In New York. Okay, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
By the end of this, I'll oh no, or maybe I'm too afraid. I don't know.
Okay, you can follow up afterwards.
Pressure.
That's okay. There's so many good ones you can't pick. So at that point, you waited for the results to come back, and unfortunately, Madeline now has Babesia, Bartonella, Lyme, and another co-infection as well. What was the treatment protocol prescribed by Dr. Jones at that point?
Okay, so she went ahead and we started right away with rifampin, Bactrim. My goodness, I'm drawing a blank. I wrote it down. Hold on. The autopovidone.
The worst.
Oh, that was the worst?
No, it seems like
the autopovidone.
No,
oh, yeah. But I think
which one's the red powdery?
The red powder was the rifampin.
Oh, rifampin.
That one was the worst.
Yeah, rifampin's the worst one.
Yeah.
But Madeline, why didn't you like the red powder, the rifampin?
We'll explain to him why it's red powder. This is another difference with adults and a 5-year-old is 5-year-olds, most of them don't take pills. So explain to him why it's powder.
Because it's in a pill, and then like
open it.
And then like we open it, and then like we get the powder, and like you just put it in a spoon with juice, and then like you just eat.
Sometimes the powder gets stuck in your throat, on your teeth.
And the taste.
It was her least favorite.
And did it taste really bad, Madeline?
Yeah.
Ugh.
That was her least one.
And then there was this yellow one that was like paint.
The autopovidone.
Yeah,
Ugh.
It was like glows in the dark.
Then there was one more, and that one I would drink it all day long. It's like
that was
bubble
Bactrim. It was like a pink bubblegum substance.
Yeah.
But that one gave you the worst migraines. We
Yeah.
kept having to take you off of that one.
It was good though.
So with the Bactrim and the migraines, do you think that was because that was a Herx reaction, Alex? Is that you think that's possibly the reason, or do you think it was a reaction?
I do feel like it was a Herx reaction, but it was almost too intense that it would keep her from going to school. And so we ended up just having to pull back from it because it was just too intense for her. And, you know, she's only 5 and she's so tiny.
So the rifampin and the Bactrim antibiotics were probably used for the Bartonella and Lyme. And then I can't pronounce it, the Ativaquin, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but that's for the Babesia, right?
The autopovidone.
Yeah, that's for the Babesia, correct? That's the anti-malaria drug used for Babesia?
Yes.
And how did Madeline respond to that? Was that one, was there any herxing there? Because we've heard that herxing from Babesia can be very aggressive as well.
Do you remember what it was like? Do you remember some of your symptoms after taking the medicine?
I think the medicine helped.
Yeah. Do you remember like ever feeling bad or having bad days or no?
Well, sometimes.
I feel like her stomach would get upset. Not in or more like it was unsettled. It more of a stomach ache, like a pain. You definitely had that. I do recall that.
So talk to us more about at this point, when you're in Connecticut and you're treating now with this new medication, were your symptoms the same, Madeline? Did you feel any worse? Was there anything else that was bothering you besides your headaches and your knees and being so tired all the time?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
So how long did Dr. Jones put you on these 3 medications for?
A year?
It felt like a year or two, huh? No, so, and again, I was so naive still. even though I knew I was starting to gain so much knowledge through, Facebook and, meeting with Dr. Jones, but I thought we were only going to be, or I thought Madeline was only going to be on these 3 antibiotics for maybe 2 months or 3 months. And so it seemed like whenever we would have the follow-ups and I would ask like, okay, so are we going to stop like next week? Are we going to stop like in 2 weeks? And he would just say, no. And I would never really get a clear answer. But to answer your question, Madeline did 10 months straight, nonstop, with the exception of back trim. And that was just purely because that gave her probably the worst symptoms. It would really, really affect, her little head. And it was those migraines were really, really bad for her.
So do you think, Alex, that if you weren't so aggressive in diagnosing and then finding a Lyme specialist, that the Lyme would have progressed and it would have been much harder and much more severe to treat Madeline?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I used to think about that all the time. Like I used to think, gosh, like with her symptoms right now, the way they are, and they're, I know for like the Lyme community, it could be considered mild, but for us, I mean, they were pretty, I don't know if severe is the right word, but when you have a 5-year-old and they have those symptoms, like the severe migraines and just things are going south, and that's not your child, like it's just so sad.
And
like the sooner you catch it, then the better, because the later you catch it, it's the way worse.
Yes.
Yeah. And please don't take this the wrong way. I just think I don't think you really, it was very severe. Migraines alone can be debilitating. So I think that,
okay.
Yeah, I really do believe that this case sounds severe, but I also want to credit you, Alex, because it could have gotten even worse, I believe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It could have. And I've met other, parents along the way who, their children are ultimately homeschooled for physical reasons, also mental reasons, because maybe they can't, keep up, or, it's too stressful, or even, it's tiring on them. So definitely.
So Alex, you said it was 8 months in total, correct? For these 3 medications? 10. So at the end of the 10-month window, Madeline, when you stopped taking all the medication, did you feel better?
I felt the same. I was a lot happier.
I think I recall you were doing better a couple months. She was doing a little better. I would probably say at the 6th, 7th month mark, because I recall I jumped on a call with Dr. Jones and I said, she's doing really great. I said, can we stop now? Because these heavy antibiotics it really bothered me. It wasn't something that I really wanted Madeline to be on, especially because I just thought she was going to jump on one. I had no idea what co-infections were, and I had no idea that we were going to get involved with 3 heavy antibiotics on a little body of a 5-year-old. So I was like ready to get off of these as soon as possible because I didn't want it ruining her gut. And so I do recall jumping on a call with him, asking him, I said, hey, she's feeling better. She's doing great. I think the symptoms are gone. Can we just pull off? And he told me no. He's like, because it could just, make us go backwards. He's like, you got to just keep pushing forward and making sure that we're getting everything.
So Alex, talk to us more about the gut health, because you mentioned that you were concerned about all these antibiotics. Were you doing anything either on your own or with Dr. Jones to address the gut health and the side effects of the antibiotics?
Sure. So we kind of did our own thing. Dr. Jones doesn't really have a plan, or he doesn't really execute gut health. So I just kind of did my own thing. I ended up, again, on Facebook with other moms, and I ended up finding other probiotics that they were using. And I ended up putting Madeline on those probiotics, and I was doing them 2 hours apart from the antibiotics so that the antibiotics don't attack the good bacteria, what I'm trying to, replenish.
So once again, now you've become Dr. Alex, this unofficial Dr. Alex hits Dr. Google and gets all the right information to protect Madeline's gut while treating Lyme with these aggressive antibiotics.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I know from discussions we've had offline that there was also some discussion or use of herbs as well, it sounds like, maybe nutrimetics and the Byron White protocol. So where did that come into play?
Okay, so after, the 10 months, we were doing great. I would have to say, even for like a year, Madeline was doing fantastic. There were really no symptoms. She was almost back to, a normal childhood. And then something took a nosedive. I don't know exactly what it was, but we were full blown back with symptoms. And so my mom ended up finding a holistic or a naturopathic doctor out of San Diego, which is much closer to us. We don't have to fly out there. And so we ended up switching over to her, Dr. Nicola, over in San Diego. And she's the one that got us on, the Byron Whites and the NutriMedic.
And this is Dr. Nicola in San Diego, you said, right?
Yes.
And she works with young patients that are suffering from tick-borne illnesses like Lyme?
Yes.
So how long was Madeline symptom-free or almost back to normal before she had the resurgence of symptoms?
I would have to say it was almost a year. It was quite a while after that 10 months thing that we did with Dr. Jones. I mean, she was awesome. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like it never happened.
So like age-wise, about 7 maybe?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
So Madeline, talk to us what that was like for you, because you were doing so much better and then you got sick again. So what did that feel like, and what were the symptoms that made you feel not so good anymore?
That's when you were in Miss Bobian's class. Do you remember? I think that's when, when you said 7, I remember the grade now. That was Miss Bobian. Do you remember did you remember your symptoms?
Yeah. So I feel like so in class, it was kind of different because the grade was harder. And
So you think just keeping up with school was?
Yeah, I couldn't really keep up. I was always behind. And then
can I tell you what I knew? I knew something was off because we had back to school night and I saw the writing in her books. And I think that's when my heart broke. See, I'm going to get teary because I saw her writing in the books and I just thought, okay, that's not Madeline's writing. And I knew something was off. And I told her teacher, and of course her teacher said, there's nothing wrong. She said, maybe she just needs more practice at home. She said, my husband had Lyme disease and he's fine. And I knew from the writing though, because you can tell with her writing, if it gets a little sloppy,
Mhm.
I know that there's something wrong. And then I looked in her desk and I saw her pencils, and her pencils were completely eaten up. And I knew something was wrong. But I knew she just wasn't telling me.
So this was truly an uphill battle where your teacher, Madeline, didn't even think you were sick and thought it was normal at this time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And thankfully for your mom again, your mom knew something wasn't right, and your mom helped you get additional treatment. So Alex, talk to us about the appointment or the visit with this now naturopathic doctor, Dr. Nicola in San Diego, and how that was different from your experience with Dr. Jones.
Okay, so it was really awesome. I really loved her approach to it. It was something that I was actually more comfortable doing because, like I said, it's so harsh on their bodies. So this was really something that I was open to, and I think Madeline was too, because it didn't involve, the powder, the rifampin, getting stuck in the back of her throat. And so we were really open to it, and it was really a great visit.
So was the takeaway from this appointment with Dr. Nicola that you were going to use the NutriMedics and the Byron White protocol? That was the end result?
Yes. So we did the Byron Whites, and that did not work well with Madeline. It just wasn't working well. We even went down to like a drop, and it wasn't for her. I know it's a wonderful product though, and it's worked, miracles with others. It just doesn't work with Madeline's body well, but the NutriMedics, it seems to work really, really well with Madeline. And even currently, earlier this year, we were using it, and I think we even got her back up to like 8 drops a day, which is good for her body.
And we still do take vitamins and
Yeah.
probiotics.
Yeah, we're still on those daily.
But I
Madeline.
have some drops and they are amazing.
Which
tasting.
ones?
The hair one.
The hair. Oh yes.
And then the muscle one.
Yeah. So she's on, she does take CBD oil. That's what she's talking about, her muscle one.
So
Yeah.
talk to us about CBD oil. Why is Madeline taking CBD oil? Is that for stress? Is it for inflammation?
So I originally started using CBD oil on her when she was in the 2nd grade. I was using it more for stress for school because at the time she was at a regular school and I just felt like it really helped with, what was going on. And the school is really rigorous and, it's nonstop, academics. So I was using it for that. And I also had read that it can help with, joints too. So we do that.
So also talk to us a little more about the NutriMedics, because we know that particular brand is used for the Cowden protocol in adults. So was it the Cowden protocol that you were using, or was it a different type of product from NutriMedics for Madeline?
Different products. I would have to say what I have, probably going on at least once a year is the Hatunia. That one is probably our best friend because that one is what really kind of comes back into Madeline's life. So we definitely deal with that.
So the herbs have really allowed you to get Madeline back to a good baseline, it sounds like, Alex.
Absolutely, definitely. Yes. In fact, I don't know if we would go back to antibiotics. That's something that I would have to talk about with Madeline to see like if she's comfortable with that, because she is older now. Because back then it was truly like, and this is another thing that's different with parents and with children when you're dealing with Lyme. It's like the whole weight falls on the parent. You have to make sure that everything that you're doing like on your child is gonna work and that it's not gonna harm them versus when you're an adult, you're making these decisions like for yourself. And it's so hard to like watch your child be the guinea pig essentially and see like what medications work. Oh no, this one caused way too big of a herx. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to give that to you. And I feel like that's really something that's like challenging as a parent to watch because they're trusting you and they're trusting that you're going to make the right decision for them.
So Alex, with the Byron White protocol, was there herxing involved and that's why you pulled back, or it just wasn't working at all and that's why you pivoted over to the NutriMedics?
The herxing was just way too much. Even at one drop, it was just not happening. We were having severe Lyme rage. I mean, severe. And the herxing, the migraines, the body heat, the sweats, it was just too much. And then when you have to pull down to one drop, that's where we were kind of like, maybe this isn't for us. Because maybe it's too heavy. It's not working because if we can't even build up from one drop, then maybe we should look somewhere else. But like I said, I know it's an amazing, thing and it's done, great things for others.
So Madeline, do you think that the herbs, the drops that you're taking are better for you? I guess first, are they easier to take?
Yeah.
They don't taste as gross, right?
Yeah, they taste better, but the one thing though of them that I don't like is gummies.
The gummies?
Yeah, whenever I take gummies.
Oh, those are vitamins. He's talking about like the drops from like Dr. Nicola, the ones that like have like a funky taste or they smell weird. The brown drops.
Those ones.
Yeah, he's talking about those.
Yeah, those ones they smell.
They smell funky. Right?
Yeah.
So Madeline, do you feel better since you've taken those drops? Do you think you feel better and you're not as angry?
I feel like I'm the same, but maybe if like I don't know. I feel like I'm the same, like they didn't help or make anything worse. Okay. Like it was the same. Like it wasn't bad.
So Alex, what are your thoughts? Because you mentioned that it was about 2 years ago when Madeline had this setback and was not doing so well. Do you think that the herbs helped her in any way?
I do feel like that they did, especially the Nutrimex ones. Like I said, I have those just sitting ready because I feel like it comes back maybe yearly. So I'm a fan of it. And I feel like it does help Madeline tremendously. And it's something that's really easy to, to give to her. And she doesn't fight me on it. So
Let's talk about how you're feeling today, Madeline. Do you still get migraines as bad as you used to?
No, it's pretty rare when I get them.
yeah.
What about like your knee pain and the pain in your legs? Does that still happen?
No, not really, but I remember once I had a growing spurt. So besides that, no.
And what about your tiredness, the fatigue? Are you feeling a little bit more energy these days now?
Yeah, definitely.
So Madeline, it sounds like you made a lot of progress since you were sick, that you've come a long way and you're feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
So Alex, what do you think? It sounds like Madeline's maybe in remission.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say that she is like 100%. We're not on anything right now. She's just living off of like vitamins and glutathione and her CBD. So it's basically just maintenance and just, working on trying to feed her as clean as possible with the limited food options that she gives me, because Madeline is a really picky eater, and that's something that's also super challenging to try to direct, especially with someone that has Lyme, because you got to kind of stay away from all the dairy and from the sugars and from the gluten. And then when you have, and the dyes, and then when you have a child that's picky, it makes it even that much more challenging. So like I said, even when you're an adult and you have Lyme, at least and you can kind of say like, okay, well, maybe I don't feel like having a salad today, but I know that I need to have a salad because it's gonna it's all about maintenance and keeping up, versus you have like my Madeline here, and she doesn't care. She's not having a salad. It's gonna be a battle,
So Alex, talk to us about the glutathione. You mentioned that that's something you take from a maintenance standpoint. Was that something that was recommended by Dr. Nicola?
Yes. And I'm a huge fan of it. I don't think I will ever take Madeline off. I hope she continues to stay on it, even when she's older and she's not with me. I'm a huge fan of it.
So we get questions often, can children take glutathione? I think obviously you've answered that for us because Madeline is on it, but what benefits have you seen that have in Madeline's health?
Okay, so I feel like it helps her mentally. I feel like it helps her be a little bit more clear, versus where things maybe get lost or she maybe get brain fog. That's where I feel like it has helped her tremendously.
I really want to now take a pivot in this discussion and talk about how you've used this journey to help other people and to have a positive impact in the world as a whole. So Alex, I know you and Madeline have done some really cool stuff to give back after this experience. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So basically what Madeline and I did, and we've talked about this before, even when Madeline was younger, when she was first diagnosed with Lyme, she was really upset about having Lyme disease, and she was really embarrassed. I could never even speak with other people about her Lyme disease, because she just felt it was something that she was really embarrassed about. And I used to have talks with her and say, like, you got this for a reason. There's a reason why you have Lyme. There's a reason why you got it when you were 5 years old. There's a reason behind everything. And I truly feel like the reason is because, maybe there needs to be more awareness out there for pediatric Lyme. And I feel like, Madeline was given an outlet to do that. And so I feel like it's really important that she uses her voice, and that she, when she's comfortable, I think she's getting a little bit more comfortable speaking about it, especially this year. And so we wrote the book. And in fact, the doctor in there is Dr. Kurtz. That was our doctor that saw the rash, the very first one. So that's him. It looks exactly like him too. So it's so funny. So we wrote the book, and I wanted to do a book because
there's not a lot of kid Lyme books.
Yeah, we just wanted to add to it. And I really wanted something that was bright and fun for Madeline, because when she was 5, I remember looking and seeing like, okay, can I find a really big, bright Lyme book that I could read to her so that she's not so scared, and so that she's not, feeling like she's the only one, because she ultimately was the only one at her school that had Lyme. And so that's kind of how the whole, project got started.
So Alex, where can people find this book if they want to purchase it? And Rich and I have bought it, and it's a great book and great resource. We recommend everybody buy. But where can they go find the book, and what's the name of it?
Oh, thank you so much. It is available online at Amazon, Target, Walmart. There's also an ebook version that's available in case you don't want to physically have a book, or you just want to have it easy, to read on, a Kindle or any kind of a phone format. That'll work too.
So it's not compatible with fax machines though.
It's not yet. I might be able to work something out. I could definitely print it out though, and I can mail you one.
That was obviously a joke referring to Dr.
Dr.
Jones and his fax machine.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, because, I had to send her application to him. I had to mail it in a vanilla envelope. So I was saying I could print out the book to you and send it in a vanilla envelope too.
So I know you mentioned that Madeline is really not, when comfortable, she's speaking out. But I think just the fact that you're here, Madeline, today on this podcast is amazing, because you're going to be 10 pretty soon. You feel much better. You've gone through so much in your life, and you're here sharing your story to help other people. And that's really amazing. So thank you for that, Madeline.
You're welcome.
So Alex, is there anything else that you see coming down the road for you guys? You created this brilliant book for children, and it's all about Lyme disease and raising awareness and advocating for the community. What else have you done? I mean, I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and there's just so many cool things that you've done to help the community.
Oh, thank you. I guess Madeline and I would like to write a part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we really would like to do that. And I guess a goal for me personally is I'd like to get more involved with other foundations and seeing how I can help. And the reason being I'm saying I and me is because I want to lay that work down for Madeline, because she is only 10 years old, and I want her to, focus on her health right now. And, maybe in a year or two, like, she can see what I'm doing and then follow, and start working with other foundations, maybe even hop on calls with other kids that have Lyme, which she's done already. And that has been so amazing. And that's made my heart so warm, because she's met other kids on Facebook, and, they talk and they FaceTime, and it's really awesome for them.
So if people are listening and they want to get in touch with you to either talk as a parent or as potentially their child, to touch base with Madeline, what's the best way to contact you? Social media, email? How should they reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. My email, my Instagram, my phone number. No, anyway, I mean, we're totally open. I love speaking to other parents about Lyme and what their children are going through, and especially what they're going through. I met a mother, Brandy. She's been amazing. I've met
Brandy.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Brandy Dean, is that who you're referring to?
Yes.
Oh, she's the best. Yes. You're in good company.
Yes, I love Brandy. So, I mean, I've met so many incredible moms, because of this. And I just know that it's going to happen for Madeline too, as she gets older and as she becomes more and more comfortable, with this and speaking up and, just spreading awareness. So I know that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the final question we ask all of our guests, and this is going to be directed towards you, Alex. If tomorrow, pizza, no, we'll hold that for after. If God forbid tomorrow, Madeline came in and had a tick biting on her leg, what would you do?
Oh my goodness. What would I do? I'd get the lighter. No, I'm kidding. Oh my goodness. I'm like, would I take it out, or would you take it out?
I would not take it.
You wouldn't take it out?
I don't blame you.
I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know what to do, but then I'm thinking, what if it were to happen tomorrow? I guess I would do oh my goodness. I'm like, is there a wrong,
there's a tick on me that's biting me and I don't know about it.
I know. So I'm wondering, I'm like, am I going to get the wrong answer here? Cause I know what, I would try to get everything. I would try to get the head, obviously. And I would save the tick, get the tick tested. I'm not quite sure I would get Madeline tested, because I already know what to look out for. I would just look out for symptoms. Maybe a rash would populate. I'm not sure, but I would take out the tick myself and make sure I get the head, everything.
And no blood work for Madeline, right? Madeline wants no blood work.
I mean, I'm always down for blood work because we have to see what the body's doing, but Madeline is not a fan of it. And like I said, when she's doing blood work, the whole not the hospital, but the whole doctor's office knows that she's in.
Nobody wants to take my blood.
She scared one of the nurses. One of the nurses said, I will not.
So one of the downsides of this being an audio podcast is our viewers can't see Madeline's face when I ask that question. So but to answer your question, there is no wrong answer here because look, people freak out when they get bit by a tick. Knowing what I know, I was bit last year by a Lone Star tick. I had a complete panic attack, ripped it off my leg. The thing dropped on the floor and I did everything wrong. So it's something that I think we should all be prepared for. And we don't think about it enough, but it's something that your emotions take over because of knowing how bad it can truly be. So we appreciate your honesty on that, Alex.
Okay, great.
So
like, I don't know.
And just as a final note here, we're going to put your contact information in the show notes. So for everybody listening, check out the show notes in the description. We'll have links to your social media and for ways for other parents and children to contact you to coordinate some discussions so you can help. And we want to just tell everybody to keep their eyes open because this podcast is going to be the first of many things that I think we're going to do together to help raise awareness for the community and advocate for change in the Lyme world. So again, Alex, Madeline, thank you so much for joining us today. And we can't thank you enough for all of your help and contributions to the community.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having us. This was Madeline's first time speaking at a podcast and sharing her story. So thank you so much for having us, and thank you for putting my information, so people could see it because, and I truly mean it. If there are any parents out there or children that even want to reach out and speak to us or just even vent, please do so because I'm always here. And Madeline has made friends with other kids because of social media. So yeah, we're excited for that.
Thank you for listening to the Tick Boot Camp interview with our guests, Alexandra and Madeline Castellanos. To our listeners, we have a call to action. First, if you'd like to learn more about Alexandra or Madeline Castellanos, please purchase their book, Mylie's Lyme Story, or visit their Instagram page at Mylie's Lyme Story. Second, if you enjoyed this episode of the Tick Boot Camp podcast, please share with your friends by using the social media buttons you see at the bottom of our post. Third, Tick Boot Camp has created a Tick Bite Blueprint that has been inspired by the information that has been shared with us by past podcast guests. We urge you to visit our website at www.tickbootcamp.com to view the blueprint. Please note we would appreciate any input or any improvements you would like to share with us. Fourth, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify to get your automatic episode updates of our Tick Boot Camp podcast. And finally, we thank you, our community, for your comments on our past podcast episodes. Please take a minute to leave us an honest review on Apple Podcasts, on Instagram, or on our website. We make it a point to read every single one of the reviews we get. Thank you for listening.